When you're done working, I think that's when you're dead. And that doesn't have to be true of everybody, but the happiest people I know are always they're always got something going on. And so what is that something going to be? If you don't know what to do next and you want to find a sense of purpose, meaning, fulfillment in that next season, look back and say, like, where are the places where you have felt most alive?
Hey there, welcome to Wealth Beyond Riches. Thanks for stopping by here on YouTube. Today's conversation, we're talking with Dan Cumberland of the Meaning Movement. We talk about AI, we talk about being an entrepreneur and figuring out what's next after you sell your company. He gives an amazing 4-part framework that you're not going to miss. We talk about parenting, talk about what is like dealing with more money than you had before, and so much more in this conversation. You're really going to like it. If you are all about making changes so that you're 1% closer to your true purpose and calling, you definitely don't want to miss this episode. Hey, if you're liking what you're listening to, please hit subscribe so you don't miss another episode. That's it. This is going to be good. You've got something called the Meaning Movement. Did I get the name right?
Yep, that's right.
And it has a ton to do with how do you go after purpose and calling in your work. Why did you do something like that? What drove you to go after that?
Yeah, the Meaning Movement is kind of like the project that I could not do. And I think like it's a little bit meta. I'm going to give, it's a little bit inception that like I just get a lot of meaning, fulfillment, purpose, joy out of helping people wrestle with what gives them meaning, purpose, fulfillment, and joy.
Yeah.
But like tactically what that looked like is I started my career in youth ministry. It was both a great fit in that like I built an amazing, beautiful community with students. And also it was like just lots of tension with parents, staff, and like faith, the struggling, and like just a hard place to struggle. And
the western suburbs of Chicago.
In the western suburbs of Chicago, yes. And my exit plan was a very palatable exit to go to grad school, go to seminary, and follow the one thread that I had which was I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know what I was, what my purpose was, but I knew that I got really fired up around conversations about the future and about what the students I was working with, what they want to do with their lives. And I thought like it's just, I just wanted pursue this because I don't know what I'm doing, right? And I don't know what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
So I went and did a degree, interdisciplinary degree from the Seattle School of Theology and Psychology. That was part theology and part psychology. And that just felt like the right intersection for these questions of calling and direction and, these existential questions.
Yeah.
And in that program really, I think came to name a couple of things about myself. One is that I like to start things and that's okay. That maybe I didn't really have a template for being an entrepreneur, but maybe that's a bit of who I am in the world. Yeah. And then two, that like the energy that I have around these existential, these big questions wasn't just for me, but it was for others as well. And that came through a variety of means, but I was like organizing the events on the campus around getting people to share their career stories, these professors and other thought leaders and things like that. And just had this different energy about it that like was kind of reflected back to me by my friends, by the community. And people are like, hey, you I know you're, wrestling with these ideas. And the question of like, is this for you or is this for others? And they're like, we're not organizing events for other people, right? We're just asking the questions for ourselves. And so that was a really clarifying moment. And then coming out of the school, like a lot of my colleagues were going and becoming therapists, and there's a very gravitational pull. Dan Allender is one of the founders of the school, very much a voice in the realm of psychology and especially faith and psychology. And there's a gravitational pull of being a therapist, which is great, very, profound work. But I wanted to do more than just sit across from people. Not that there's anything wrong with sitting across from people, but I wanted to impact more than a one-on-one context would allow. And that was the impetus of the Meaning Movement, to build a platform, if you will, to where I could, reach more people with these ideas that I was wrestling with, and really hopefully give a place to change the narrative around like how we think about, who we are in the world in the realm of work. So that was, I feel like, a much longer answer to a pretty straightforward question, but that's the truth.
What I'm hearing is, it came out of a personal crisis, if you will, or a personal wrestling. Like you were trying to solve a problem for you, and then you realized this was a problem that everybody's trying to solve.
Yes.
And your specific, there's been a ton of writing on it, and I'm sure podcasts and books that are already out there. I always go back to, but your voice speaking into it is going to have a unique take on it.
Yes.
And I think that's really cool, and maybe encouraging for anybody listening. Like, oh, well, there's so many things about XYZ already out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not you talking about it.
100%.
And when you started talking about meaning and purpose and calling, your body language changed. Your intonation
Yeah.
went up a bit.
Yes. I get fired up about this stuff.
Yeah. And that's just natural. That's like in you. That's part of your wiring, which is really cool.
Yeah, totally. On that, I feel like it was like Charlie Munger that said it, but I might be misattributing it. But the idea that like everything's already been said, but nobody was listening.
Yeah.
And that's where I come back to with that, because it's easy. You can let yourself off the hook or write off your voice so easily with that rationale, but we need your voice. You have something to say. I think that's really, I think you boil down the meaning movement, which is another way of saying, if you boil down what my work in the world is, it's really that everybody has something to say. Everybody has an impact, whether it's actually words or some other creative act. I want to help people uncover that and find the motivation and inspiration they need to go and make more of whatever that is.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Go back to, you were a youth pastor and you were searching for calling. You thought this was your calling, your thing from God. And for people listening who are from different belief systems and stuff like that, Dan's just talking from the Christian worldview, going, hey, this is what I thought I was meant to do, basically.
Yes.
So you felt like that was your calling. And I've talked with my therapist a bit about like calling versus assignment. How did you wrestle with it? I guess, what answer did you get when you're like, I thought this was it,
Yes.
but it wasn't?
Yeah. There's this profound moment that I had while I was, I was in that role for 5 years, and this is maybe year 3 or so. And I had been struggling with depression, had been in therapy, which was really helpful. And just trying to find, figure out what I needed, but got involved with this leadership coach and was on this leadership retreat. It was really great work. Part of what he had is like a small group, like 3 or 4 people. He had us kind of map out like our last couple of years, the highs and lows, and kind of just share our stories, kind of one of the first things. So I had done that. And then the first thing that he asked, as soon as I've been talking about 10 minutes or whatever, he said, so Dan, who told you had to be a youth pastor? And it was just like this.
Wow.
It was just like a gut punch or a throat punch. I just felt like I had the wind knocked out of me, because I was like, I thought it was God, right? And I didn't really have an answer then, but now, after thinking about it longer and really unpacking more of my story, really came to see, it was actually my youth pastor. Which if we were taking bets on who might have told me something, you'd probably could have, if I painted a picture of the characters in my life, like, probably the youth pastor would say you should be a youth pastor.
Yeah.
But I think that was a big piece of it, to just kind of untangle like the voices that I had internally, telling stories about who I was and what I should and shouldn't do. And my youth pastor is a great influence on my life. And so I don't fault him for that. And in some ways, it's just, I think, a sign that like I needed someone to speak, to speak something over, to see me, right? And he did. And so I think there was again, to use that idea of like a gravitational pull, like to follow in his footsteps in those ways. And so I don't remember exactly what the question is, just about, unraveling it, but that's how it started to unravel for me, is to really kind of separate out like who I am and what I want. And, in using, in my worldview of who God, created and maybe put in, what was put inside me versus, what others, the voices, and we absorb these narratives about ourselves and about what we should do and who we should be or not be from everywhere. It's just like the waters we swim in, the culture, the belief systems, the family of origin, the country we live in, all of those things. We just, it just becomes, we don't even question it. It's like that story the story about these 2 young fish were swimming along, and they passed an older fish swimming the other day. And they said, the older fish was like, hey, the water's nice today, isn't it, boys? And then they look at each other and say, what's water?
Right.
But like, that's like how we live our lives, right? The water that we swim in is created by all of these forces in our lives and all these voices in our lives. And so the process for me, and I think this is the process for all of us when it comes to thinking about purpose and meaning and who we're going to be and what we're going to do, is to really parse out and understand, in the midst of all the voices, let's create some space to really understand who we are, what we want, and what work we want to give ourselves to.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. You and I have really weirdly parallel stories, because I had a 6th grade teacher be like, hey, you should think about becoming a teacher. And then I had an older brother who became a teacher, and I was like, well, it sounds, I mean, sure. Yeah, I guess so. I mean,
Yeah,
you're like 18 at the time. You're deciding your major, your career.
I know, right? So much pressure.
Yeah. And while I thought that was my calling at the time, I was going to be Morgan Freeman from Lean On Me and in the inner city of Chicago, which I had no cultural context for or experience in or anything like that.
Oh, wow.
It didn't last very long. And so I grew a lot in that. I learned a lot from that. I learned like more of who I was and whatnot, and also who I wasn't, and being okay with that.
Yeah.
But it was hard to be like, well, this is who people have said I could be, and people were like, hey, you were like, I got great feedback on teaching, but I didn't love it.
Yeah.
And not that everything has to do with love, but I spent a lot of time outside of core competencies. 8 to 3, I was on presenting, entertaining, like it was math. You just had to make it fun and energizing.
Yes.
Just embrace the fact that it stinks, but we will get through this together.
Yes. Wow.
So you went on from grad school, became an entrepreneur along the way, grew a couple companies, sold some. So in all of that, we captured like how you went after purpose and calling early on in your career. Talk to us about some of those transitional stages. What would you say to somebody who's, I'm trying to sell the company in the next year or two, because then I'll have this and this, being on the other side of that.
Yeah.
Even somebody who's thinking about retirement, I'm going to walk away from this career. What are some things somebody could do to start thinking about purpose and calling for the next chapter that's maybe undefined?
Yeah. It's like the next chapter after a significant work endeavor, whether that's a career and they're retiring or a company that they're selling. Yes. I love that question. I think the first thing.
Thank you for summarizing it too. Maybe we should just have the same show. I don't know.
It's great. No, you keep doing it, and I'll just come on and be a guest now.
Okay, perfect.
The first thing I think about is that I really believe that we are made to create, to make things, and that we talk about work, often as career or as a money-making venture, and just want to like untangle those two ideas just for a moment. That work isn't just about making money, though that is often how we see it. I think it's also, can also be a gendered part of the conversation too, that I think especially for men, there's this pressure to like, I only have time to like, I got to provide or like whatever. Not that women don't feel that, to some degree as well, but
we were just both talking about our wives who are jumping into careers or unpaid internships.
Yes. Unpaid, externships maybe.
Yeah. There we go.
But so the first invitation is to uncouple money-making ventures and work, and to view work as a part of what it means to be human in its best, right? There's lots of different kinds of work. There's work that's totally soul-sucking and draining, but work at its best is an opportunity for you to make an impact, to use maybe a little bit more philosophical language, to utilize your agency unto some change in the world, right? To get a little abstract, but what that means is that you're doing something that matters. They're doing something that matters to you at a deep level. And whether that is, helping someone, healing some pain, creating something that you just feel should exist, or whatever it might be, all of that is caught up in this realm of work. But we often think of it through this very siloed lens of what makes money. So we have the money piece, we couple those together, which is, it's just a small fragment of what can exist in the realm of work. And so a lot of people have this in Western culture, this idea of like retirement, where like you stop working and then you just sit around, maybe play golf, you drink cocktails by the pool, which is great. If that's what you want to do, great. But when you're thinking about post whatever the big effort was, whether that was a career, whether that was growing and selling a company, I think one of the most important things for us to think about is what is the work that we'll be giving ourselves to, whether or not it makes money. It can make money if you want to go, if you want to start again, do something that's paid, go for it. But even outside of that, what is the thing that you want to take on, the task, the mission, the side quest, whatever analogy or language you want to put to that. I
love the side quest. I can only think of Chipotle right now because that's our typical side quest as a family, like on the way home from church, like, hey,
Let's do a side quest to Chipotle.
Close to Chipotle. I love that you went to Chipotle because I think when I think of side quests, I think of Zelda or like a video game. Like where
Well,
from.
I think it's I don't. My teenagers are using it as a term of you do. Dad's gonna always have a side quest to Costco if he's driving by. Something like that.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So the invitation here is to think about what kind of quest would you want to orient yourself around in the next season. It doesn't, to redefine what work means for you, but not to say that I'm done working. Really, in my opinion, when you're done working, I think that's when you're dead. And that doesn't have to be true of everybody, but I have this theory that the happiest people I know are always up to something. They're always got something going on. And so what is that something going to be? And there's a lot of ways to kind of, if that is the biggest question, it feels like you're staring at a blank canvas or a blank Word doc with a blinking cursor, and you're like, I have no idea what to put on this.
Yeah.
The best place to look is then let's look backwards and be like, okay, if you don't know what to do next and you want to find a sense of purpose, meaning, fulfillment in that next season, look back and say where are the places where you have felt most alive? There are four categories that I find that all meaning and purpose come through in work, which is people. So who are the people? What have those relationships been like? What were you doing with those people? What's the demographic of those people? The process, what is the day in and day out? So if you had a season of work or a season of volunteering or, whatever like that, you just really love, what were you doing in the day in, day out of that? It's really easy for us to think about, meaning and purpose and fulfillment in those terms with certain careers and certain professions, maybe, writers who are writing, they just love to, just be in that creative space, but it could apply to anything. It could just be leaders who are, working with their team, having meetings and coaching or whatever might be. So really think about, what is the process piece? The next is the product, which is it's maybe a technical term. I have a background in software. So product managers is a thing, but the product is the impact that you're having. So what's the change that you're working to accomplish? And maybe that's in an organizational space, as your background, it was as an educator, right? The change, the impact, the product was these kids' education and their future. In a nonprofit space, it might be a cause that you're after. In a business, it's the change that you're accomplishing for your customers. Or especially the bigger the business, maybe that product is just the impact that you're having within your team, within your organization.
Yeah.
And then that final piece, which can matter less when it comes to your retirement and post, exit, is the payoff. But that's more than just money. It's lifestyle. It's how is this endeavor giving me back something and giving me back a life that I want to live? So as you look back on your life and say, okay, here are the seasons where I felt most, alive, whether it's, coaching your kid's softball league or, doing a certain project or whatever it might be, using that lens to start to identify what are these themes. And what I've found in all of my research and work that I've done around this is that the things that give us meaning in life are thematic, and that there's a theme that goes through it, and we usually don't deviate too far from those themes.
Yeah. Reminds me of history doesn't often repeat itself, but it does rhyme.
Yeah.
You come back to that time and time again.
That's exactly right.
What a helpful framework. It reminded me of this time sitting down with a client, and he was switching jobs and was working with an executive coach through that process. And I was just like, hey, what was valuable about that? And he said, you know what? We talked through my resume. And he just was like, hey, talk through your resume. Yeah. And so he sat down and he said, well, from this year to this year, I was here and I was doing this. And as he talked through it, he basically did this exercise. He didn't have as beautiful as a framework as you have spent a lot of time putting together, but he was like, oh, I loved working in a small company. I loved developing and mentoring people. Yeah. And I loved building something. I'm a builder. What he hadn't realized is the last 5 years of his career, he'd just been kind of tearing stuff down.
Oh yeah.
Didn't get to build.
Yeah.
And for him, the payoff was, how many other people can I set up in this next chapter? How many other people can I pour into?
Yes.
There was a financial payoff, but then there was also this if I'm not bringing more people onto the team, developing them, getting them into new leadership roles, then what's the point? Because that's not building others. So Dan, what a really cool framework. It's so good.
Yeah. Well, and, something I want to add on to that, because I think exercises like that are so powerful. So currently I'm an AI consultant. So I was running a venture studio building software, and then kind of took a pivot over the last couple of years in helping small teams scale with AI, but really like it in a human-centered way. And this is where I feel like these kind of two streams of my world, where I have this human meaning, purpose, juicy stuff, and then I have this technology, building, software. Like they've been like these parallel tracks for a long time, and it feels like they're kind of coming together because AI at its best, again, speaking very idealistically, it forces us to wrestle with these similar questions of what does it mean to be human, and can be utilized as a tool to help us move closer in to some of these ideas and to do more of the work that really fires us up. But talking to, to people who are listening who are like, yeah, this sounds, interesting, but what do I do with it? It'd be super interesting to like do something just like you're talking about, Jim, where, narrate some of your career, and maybe, have someone in your life interview you, where you just tell your whole career story, transcribe that, feed that into AI, and say, what are the themes that you see? And that's what AI is really good at, is synthesizing data, finding the connection points between them, and then have a dialogue, have a conversation with AI about all of your history, right? Just to help you surface insights that you might otherwise miss. Because so if you can't work with a coach or a consultant or something around these ideas, utilize AI to help with that, because we're so close. It's like we can't see the forest for the trees because we're just right in it, and we need that outside perspective. But that's a very exciting kind of change, that's happening even as I'm working with coaches in their businesses, like helping equip them with AI to help them even surface the insights so that they can accelerate or deepen their impact on their clients. So just want to mention that as just to get super practical here.
Yeah.
That's a way people can apply this.
That's awesome. That's super cool. And what's neat about that is it allows you to uncover the themes and the rhyming that you see throughout your looking backwards in the rearview mirror. At the same time, I love the idea too of pairing that with having one of your close friends interview you, or your spouse.
Yes.
Because they're going to pick up then on the body language and what you get excited talking about as you talk through that.
Yes. Yes.
Dan, I'm really curious, with your work in AI, as you're talking to somebody and they're like, hey, AI is really scary, just like general statement, which is, how do you respond to that? Because you're obviously working with it, and I heard a little bit of it has the ability to actually enrich our relationships. Does it also have the ability to destroy them as well and go the other way?
Does it have the ability to destroy the world and everything we know and love? It does.
No,
and there are futurists who will say that is the direction that AI is taking. But I tend to land more on the optimist side. But yeah, it can be used in multiple ways. And I think it's like any tool, like we shape the tool, and the tool also then shapes us. And we can use it for, to quote Spider-Man, like with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Yes.
And we can use it in an exploitative and, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like a way that detracts from our humanity and dehumanizes, or we can use it in a way that helps enhance and augments, our humanity. That's what I get most excited about, is really from that perspective, like of intellectual augmentation, that now I have this like sidekick assistant who has incredible capabilities, who can help me with anything that I need and help me, move faster, be smarter, increase the quality of my work, and do so much more. And so there are lots of, negatives, right? With any change that's happening, so we are in this shift that's very similar. And I think of it very similar to the .com era, where like work was done offline, and then after work was done online. And it was just assumed that every business had an online presence in some way now, right? And we're in the beginning of that transition where we're starting to, AI is a thing we're talking about more, but like fast forward 5 years, we're not even going to be talking about AI, because it's just going to be how we do everything. And so with that change comes both the positive and the hopeful, which, I hope to equip as many people as possible who want to utilize it in those ways. And then there's also it can also accelerate, phishing attempts and, like all the negative and, dangerous things as well. And so I don't know if that's the most clear answer, but because it's a very nuanced question.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And it's what I hear is it's a tool that we can either, like anything, any tool, any authority, any power, we can wield for good, we can wield it for bad.
Yeah.
And it doesn't control us, not yet.
Yes,
but we can use it. I think of a friend of mine who runs a commercial real estate company, and they have a marketing department of 3 people. And we were just talking about AI, and he was like, we can do a marketing mock-up of an ad for a new building that's for sale. And we can do it in an hour instead of like 3 weeks. And I was like, oh man, that's, first of all, amazing.
Yeah.
Number 2, did you let go of 2/3 of your marketing department?
Yeah, right. These are real questions.
And his response was, no, I saw it as a pay raise.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden they're getting the same amount of work done, maybe more work done in less time. Because a built-in pay raise.
That's beautiful.
And I was like, what? Just a cool model of, yes, you could just think about the dollars and be like, we only need 1 marketing person now because we have AI. Or you could go, you know what? You matter. Your job matters. Your creativity matters. You're still using these tools and the master of them. They're not replacing you. Yeah. And you know what? Hey, go home earlier as a result.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. That's the right kind. I mean, that's exactly the kind of leader that I want to help, I'm like that, because we know what the corporations are going to do. They're already doing it, right? They're like, okay, we need X number, X% fewer employees, and so that they can, impact their bottom line. But I think that's just a beautiful model of, it doesn't have to be that way. Instead, we can get way more done. Instead, we can have better life balance and all of those things. So what a beautiful example.
Yeah. Give me an example as a dad. How are you using AI to enhance your family relationships, whether it's time with them or the time you spend with them? What's up with that?
I mean, one kind of silly but fun thing is we'll sometimes make coloring sheets, like AI generated coloring sheets, and just be like, what do you guys want to color? And like, there's something before I would just, search for, Super Mario Brothers, like toadstool coloring sheet, right? And my 6-year-old's like, I want a picture of Princess Peach riding a unicorn jumping over a rainbow. I was like, done. And so then we like just and it's just so fun to be like, what do you want to create? And to show them like how these tools can do that. I use it a lot for research, as a parent, thinking about just different things for our kids. I have two daughters. We read a lot of books. I read fantasy novels, mostly fantasy novels, to my older 2 are 9 and 6.5. The 6.5-year-old being a female. But like most of those fantasy books like feature like male protagonists, and they're like, okay, what books are out there that like kind of would scratch the itch of what I like to read, what they enjoy, but also would have a female protagonist, but that doesn't overly enforce like super gender stereotype, worldview. And so then use, Gemini's deep research to tell it what I wanted, and then it fed me back. Here's 15 series about that feature a protagonist, like what I'm looking for. Just even stuff like that has like a very material impact. One of the biggest ones is that I'm in Merida, Mexico right now. We moved here for the 2024-2025 school year from the Pacific Northwest. The decision to move was coming together of a lot of different things. I think, Tim, we've talked about this a little bit. Yeah. But the idea was that we felt really stuck with where to live. We felt we loved the Pacific Northwest, but weren't ready to buy a really expensive house there. And so we had this idea, what if we just don't try to solve that problem of where we want to live forever and just have a different experience? And so my wife had done some research, or just made this list, like, here are like kind of places where there are a lot of expats, that are interesting cities all over the world. And there were like 50 cities. She had done some research around it. And so then I designed this whole workflow we have, 8 or 10 questions about.
Your eyes got real big, and your wife was like, you're going to go put this into AI, aren't you? And you're like, oh, yeah,
totally. And this was before, this was probably about a year ago now, before, deep research existed. So I did this, with some other automation tools, but I had all these different questions we wanted to know about these cities. Like, we wanted to find a Montessori or Waldorf school or other outdoor education type experience. We want to know just some demographics about the city, cost of living, location, close to water, close to mountains. I mean, we could frame that by looking at these cities on a map, but let's just have it all just on a list. So I had the spreadsheet, and it shortlisted from 50 locations to they were 8, I think. That were okay, this checks all the many of the boxes for us.
Yeah.
And then we were able to look at those and evaluate the schools that were there. And that's some of what led us here. We found the school that my kids go to here in Merida. Wow. And it's been an incredible experience. But that's another way, as far as how AI has influenced me and my parenting, the decisions we're making as a family, it's very, has a very material impact. Literally, where we live is partly thanks to AI, which is wild.
You heard it here. Dan used AI, and now he lives in a different country.
Be careful.
It could happen to you.
It's a slippery slope.
Oh, but what you did is you probably took 8 weeks off of your search process.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And now you're less stressed because you're like, wow, I know I checked all these boxes along the way. Or I have higher probability that I checked all these boxes along the way. Mm-hmm. And as a result, I had less stress. I had more time with my kids in the process.
Yeah.
It's so cool. That's awesome, man. I want to go back to one thing we were talking about regarding career transition.
Yeah.
You gave the 4 Ps framework, which was super helpful about looking backwards.
Yeah.
Is that something, do you think it's possible? So I'm thinking about the person who's going to sell their company in the next year. And a lot of times I'll talk with people about this transition that's upcoming because there's significant financial implications. And most people have the payoff in mind, ready to go. They're like, okay, I know what the payoff is going to be.
Yes.
But they haven't thought through that question, that phrase you said of what work am I going to give myself to in this next chapter?
Yeah.
And I hear and I think this probably most people's excuse or reason is I don't have time right now to do that. I can't, I just can't even do that until I shut this thing off. Do you think it's possible to start working on some? Are there little ways you can do it where you're not totally, well, let me just wait until the dust settles and then I'll figure it out?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely there are ways to do it. I think to even start some of, similar kind of reflective exercises can be really helpful. I mean, even with your team, with your staff, right? Before you're out of the company, how can you invite more feedback from them into when they see you at your best, and just to use this, just to grow in your self-knowledge? All that is going to help. Your self-awareness is going to help as you come back to these questions in the future. So that's one piece. Another piece is, if you don't have any other time, what's one thing I can do? I'm like, go to therapy. If you haven't been in therapy, just that, again, it's a place to really understand yourself. 1 hour a week, if you can find some space for that, or 1 hour every other week, that could be really profound and helpful, or working with a coach in a similar capacity. And then my third thought is, and if you don't have time for any of that, then at least spend some time making a plan for how you will then start to. So if you don't have time to answer the questions and what you're actually, you don't have time to pursue anything right now, at least have a plan in place so that, day one is here. You're not like, oh no, because I've been through exits. I know how much work it is and how exhausting it is. And sometimes it's just, there's just this it's almost like you're trying to look at the horizon, but there's just this big building in your way, and you can't see what's on the other side of that till you're there, right? Till you've walked in through the lobby and out the other side. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, here, this is what's here. Have a plan so that when you get there, you're not just totally lost. And that plan could just be we're going to take a 3-month trip to Europe. I'm going to, climb this, hike the Appalachian Trail. I don't know. Maybe it's just, I'm just going to do these, a little side quest right now.
Yeah.
That's
we go.
That's going to keep me grounded and give me some direction.
Yeah.
While I then think about the bigger questions.
I love that.
That could be really helpful.
Yeah. Making a plan for whatever is next, making a plan to answer the question. So it could be 3 months I'm doing nothing other than this trip to Europe or this physical challenge that I just haven't had time for.
Yeah.
3 months with my family. And then at that 6-month mark, then I'll start answering some of these questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
And that could be healthy, even though there's space in there,
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I know most people who have what it takes to build and sell a company, you can't sit still for that long, right? Yeah. You're wired to go do stuff, even 3 to 6 months off you're going to get the itch. And so, and to know that's going to happen, that's going to come, and you can use that itchiness to push you toward asking these, deeper questions.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's really good. Three awesome thoughts. Hey, do you have any good resources if somebody's, hey, I would like to get a therapist or counselor, but I don't want to ask any of my friends?
Yeah.
That feels weird.
Yep.
Is there any like online resource where it's like, hey?
Yeah. The first place I go is, because I know a ton of therapists, a lot of clients find them through Psychology Today has an online directory of therapists. That is one direction.
Yeah.
The other direction is if you're looking for a specific, it might be a more nuanced question than the average listener might have, but there are a lot of different modalities of therapy, different kind of ways to do therapy. And you could also, if you have any idea of what you're looking for, what type of therapist, to kind of use that as a basis, a filtering basis of, I'm looking for CBT or existential therapy or like whatever it might be. So you can look for those kind of keywords, which I understand like you kind of have some knowledge there,
right?
If you don't know what all of those things are, just starting with Psychology Today is a great place to start. But then I would also say ask a lot of questions, interview with a handful of folks, ask them a lot about what they do, how they do it, what they're what they're trained in, which can then kind of help you learn what to look for.
Yeah, super helpful. That's awesome. I want to pivot a little bit over to the fourth P in your framework of payoff, and thinking also about like financial payoff of selling a business.
Yes.
Now you've got more money than you had before. Let's call it a lot more than you had before.
Hope, or at least.
Yeah, totally. Hopefully. How did your relationship with money change as you kind of wrestled through, we have a lot more than we used to have?
Yeah.
What has that been like for you?
Yeah. And I think that, I've been through a few, none of them have been, just to kind of ground this conversation. They're not like life changing, they're not like, I'm ready to it feels funny to say ready to retire kind of money in this context, but just to kind of ground it there. But, in addition to that is just, last year we made more money than I ever have before. Right. And so there is, I think, that piece, which, kind of gets at the question. Yeah. What's interesting is I think a lot about generosity. I think a lot about money with our kids, something that my wife and I are exploring a lot. She kind of has a research project right now about abundance in parenting, because our kids fight about silly things, about who gets to go first or who gets, this or that, scoop of ice cream, which, like these things where it's like, it doesn't matter. Just like zoom out.
Because we adults never fight.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and this is where it all ties back, is that like they're getting it from somewhere, and so it's, shoot. And I know that like I have a bias that I'm having to confront around like my own sense of scarcity and abundance when it comes to money.
Yeah.
Of like, let me think of an example. Like we're, out and walk by like a smoothie place and have the idea, let's get a smoothie. And so often I'd be like, sure, we'll get one super sugary. I don't want our kids just like pounding. I'll just get a big one. Everybody we can just kind of, the three kids can like, sip on it. But so then it's like, they're all competing for one resource, right? And okay, instead of saving like $5 because we're buying one smoothie, one big smoothie, we're going to buy 3 small smoothies. And it's such a stupid thing. I shouldn't say stupid. That feels like too blunt of a word.
It's real, Dan. This is a real conundrum.
Yes. Yeah. But it's like, at the end of the day, it's worth it for me to just spend a little bit more money. This is where I've landed with this, in order to help my kids feel like there's enough to go around. And which is really, it's all about me and about my, which is wanting to be frugal and be conscious spending and all of those things.
Or I like to call it just smart.
Yeah, just smart.
I did the math. It works out better this way, kids. Come on.
Yes, exactly.
Anyways, I feel you.
But even saying it, like I feel kind of embarrassed, like even just saying, just buy your 3 kids 3 whatever. But you get it,
I do.
And so that's something that I've been thinking about a lot, and also knowing that it's not necessary. Like our budget is not impacted in a material sense. Like
Mm-hmm.
future Dan 10 years from now isn't going to look back and, oh, darn it, I wish we hadn't bought 3 smoothies.
Should have gotten the one big one.
Yeah. And like, sure, multiply that out times a year. How much money is that? Like it's not thousands of dollars. It's probably not even hundreds of dollars, right?
Yeah.
And yet I feel like it's one of the messages that I'm conveying to my kids. And so it's to kind of go back to your question of reevaluating money. That is one of the places where I feel like there's this trickle down effect of, okay, my values of and what I want to the experience of life that I want to instill in my kids and what the values I want them to have are operating out of a system that I'm no longer living in because we don't have to live like that. We have more means. And so we should use those means to give them a different experience of life.
Yeah.
That's one piece. And then the other thing that is shifting that's just really interesting is, I feel like the most generous time of my life was when I was making $30,000 a year. And that kind of boggles my mind. I had a friend and she asked me about a guitar recommendation. I have a background in music and she wanted, she was a guitarist wanting to, a singer-songwriter wanting to, do some more, really pursue that. And I knew that she's barely making it. And so I was like, did some research and I was like, I think the best thing to do if you buy something used and like, here's what I would recommend. And then she's, that's a lot. I was like, can I just buy you a guitar? And so we bought her this like $800 guitar. And on, I was at the time, they make it, it was like $28,000, $29,000 a year. Like it felt so good. And I want to get, in some ways, get back to that. But you think about that cost as like a percentage of my salary versus the things I give money to now as a percentage. And it's, I want to be that generous, to just be like, can I do this for you? And I think the reason why the limitation or I have around that is just as kids have entered the picture. And I think that's the biggest piece is it's really easy to slip back again, thinking about abundance and scarcity that like
they consume a lot of resources.
Yeah. And then this is where you could, so someone like you could like really help clarify some of this like financial planning and things like that for someone like myself. It feels like there's no end to the amount of money that my kids will need in the future.
We definitely underestimate those numbers prior to having the children. We're like, oh, how much is a baby? And then it's like, oh, yeah. And then school and then college. And then there's a wedding. And then.
Yes, all of that. And so I think that some of that can become a blocker for me. That that's one of the other ways that like we're making more money now than I ever have. But I want to get back to that sense of generosity. And I'm like, these things just don't line up. And that's, one of the ways that I'm wrestling with it and trying to change my own relationship with money.
Yeah, Dan, that's amazing. And thanks for just being so transparent with that. Because that can be, money can be tough to talk about. I do it all the time with people. So it's no deal. But it is hard. And it has a weird hold on us sometimes that's hard to explain. Even if we say it doesn't, it does. Totally. And dude, I love that picture of the guitar, and that was probably like one of your net paychecks after taxes.
Yeah,
it was like the entire paycheck. I just want to cash this because I got to buy this guitar, and I'll figure out rent. It'll be fine.
Yes.
So that guitar, like an amazing story. Somewhere looking backwards, stealing your framework. Who do you think modeled that for you? Like, where do you think you saw that guitar gift? Like who had taught you that or who had modeled that where you were like, oh, this is something you do for somebody?
Yeah, that's a great question. The place to go with that is I don't have a lot of examples of a single big gift like that.
Oh, yeah.
But my parents were always involved in some sort of volunteer work. I grew up in Southern California. They were on the board of an orphanage in Mexico. I gave a ton of time to that endeavor. They both served in different capacities in that organization. We were often, every other month for a period of time, we would be driving down to Mexico, to Baja, to the orphanage. I think they really modeled like what it means to sacrifice for something that matters to you. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Even thinking about how a lot of your purpose and calling in life is helping other people find meaning and purpose in what they're doing, and how you defined work as an opportunity to have an impact.
Yeah,
Your parents were showing a side of their work
absolutely.
that where they were like, hey, this is important and this is worth giving time to.
Yeah, yeah,
And sometimes those are the best examples because
100%.
man, money can have a hold on us, but so can time. We can be pretty, pretty
Yeah,
selfish with it and pretty even scarcity mindset around there's not enough to go around.
absolutely. Totally
So
true.
that's
Totally
awesome.
true.
You talked about money being a tool to really pass on values to your kids, which I think is amazing, especially like at your age and stage of being like, you know what, we could pass them an inheritance later, or we could use our money as a tool right now to pass them
Yes.
values. What are some of the things you're trying to pass to them right now? You guys want to model for them?
Yeah. The abundance is a big part of it. Trying to model, I mean, and then I think about just some of our family values of adventure. That's some of why we're here in
Mhm.
Mexico. In some ways, it sounds funny because it's such an uncomfortable word, but like privilege, like that we have choice that other people don't have, and that can be really uncomfortable. But I want them to understand like how lucky we are, and
Mm.
with great privilege, comes great responsibility to
Yeah.
reframe that
Oh yeah.
that quote.
Or as my friend Riley calls it, you won the birth lottery.
Yeah,
Like your
exactly.
family you're born into, you don't get to it's one thing you really don't get to choose.
Yes,
But
totally.
you were born in Southern California to a great family who had
Yes,
means and
yes,
opportunity and stuff like that.
yes. Yeah, totally. And here in Mexico, like we have just for example, a guy that comes cleans the pool at the place that we're renting, and we pay him. He comes once a week, and we pay him $7. When he comes and cleans the pool, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that if he could see the balance of my bank account, which isn't even that high, right? But it's probably would be more money than he's ever seen in one place, and it's uncomfortable to wrestle with the implications of that. That there's so many opportunities available to me, to my kids, that aren't available to others. And so what will we do with that? And what is the life that we're going to live? How will we utilize that? Not just to, have fun, but also to make the world a better place. That's a big piece, of empathy, kindness, and showing up in the world, leaving the world a better place, leaving the people that we interact with better than how we found them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so cool, man. Yeah. Money can be such a powerful tool for some of those things. And yeah, I love that. I'm thinking back to your guitar story again, and I love your heart for wanting to get back to that mindset. Number one, I want to affirm you. I think you already are. And it looks a lot different in this stage of life
Yeah.
with kids and stuff like that. I was convicted of something, it was probably 12 years ago. Just had this realization. It might have been my wife telling me this because most
This is how
wisdom
realizations
comes
come.
from her. Yeah, yeah. Or she tells me 6 times and then my business coach says it and I'm like, hey babe, guess what? She just shakes her head and she said, it's really good. That's
Great
amazing.
coach you got there.
Yeah, it's so good. Why do you pay him? But it was this, I think, as a family, generosity outwardly towards others came easy. It came easy for me personally. And then I was also a smoothie Grinch at the same time.
Yeah.
And it was like, I just had this realization of being generous towards others. I'm modeling it for my kids, but at the same time, I'm not modeling it for my kids.
Yeah.
Because Dad, why can't we just have a smoothie each? It's a big deal. And so I wasn't being generous towards them. And there are seasons of life where I think being generous towards your family and going, hey, we're about adventure. We're going to move to a different country. That is practicing generosity. It may not be the dollars in the 501c3 that we call that's charitable giving and and that's being generous. But the way you guys are modeling it for your kids right now with using your money towards the things you value the most, rather than accumulating things that don't have that much value at the end of the day.
I love that. Thank you for that. What a helpful reflection back to me. That means a lot. Thanks for the reframe.
Oh, for sure. Well, it's one of those things that kind of like you think about work differently than most people. We compartmentalize it into this is the thing that makes money. Sometimes we think about generosity as, oh, that's when we give money. And it is, but it's also when we give a bunch of other things. And it can go to a bunch of other places as well.
Yes. Yeah. It gets me thinking about Arthur C. Brooks, who has some great books about and purpose. And he wrote one not too long ago with Oprah. But he talks about giving as like an essential part of fulfillment, of experiencing purpose. Is one of his frameworks. It's a piece of it. But he said the most poignant, the most purpose fulfillment that you'll feel out of it, the way to turn up the dial on what you get back from giving is to get closer to the impact that giving is going to have.
Proximity.
And so instead of giving, a lot, to many different organizations, maybe you give to one organization and you're really dialed in with them. But then what I love is that his wife, when he tells the story, is like his wife was, okay, so if it's all about like impact and getting close, and the other thing he says, and also think about it in terms of individuals, like the more you can impact you can have on one person rather than just a undefined group of people, the more you're going to feel that. And his wife was like, so we should maybe adopt. And he was like, okay, I guess I got to put my money where my mouth is.
Not what I had in mind.
Yeah, but it makes me think of exactly what you're saying. That not what I have in mind, but also, that is not, it's much harder than just writing a paycheck. It's not as sexy as buying a guitar for a friend or whatever.
Yeah.
But in the day in, day out, it's having a much deeper impact on these three beautiful beings that I'm helping form.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool, man. I think the guitar story is monumental, man. It points you back to a time where you were like, hey, I don't make a lot of money, but it's still going to be okay. And I want to help this person, and it's still going to be okay. And so I think the more we can get back to those times and go, you know what? We can do the guitar. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Or put ourselves in a position of, man, I hope my human capital pays off in the future. Those are actually really good places to be.
Yeah. I love it. It just made me think. I mean, it's funny. It's another musical instrument. It just made me think about, I had a stage piano that we weren't using. The stage piano is like electric. It's like a piano that has like tuning forks inside of it instead of strings. And I have a friend who's a musician. He asked me if he could buy it. And I was like, yeah, I don't think we really need it. And so then like he checked in with me like later, and I was like, yeah, I haven't really thought about, can I buy it from you? And I was like, yeah, let me just figure out how much. And I just felt really stuck on it. And I was like, I think I just want to give it to him. And then so the last time he asked about it, I was like, his name's Beasley. Beasley.com is his website. You should go check out his music.
Yes. Love it.
Beasley, DOTCOM.com.
I love it.
He's a singer-songwriter and just a great guy. Well,
it's in the show notes already. I love it.
Yeah, it's good. I love that. But I just remember just when I was like, I think I just want to give it to you, Beasley. And like he's like, like he got some tears in his eyes and just gave this big gold hug. And I did too. And it's just like, it just feels so good to give. And apparently it feels good for me to give musical instruments to people. So if you need
what do you got, Dan? What's in the library?
Yes,
I love that. I think it ties into money can't buy happiness is the quote. And that's where I always say I totally disagree.
Yeah.
Because instances like that where you gave of something that had financial value and you recognized its value was more in the other person.
Yes.
And you showed that person value. What you get back from that, talk about turning up the dial and fulfillment, like it way overshadows whatever you gave away.
Yeah. 100%.
Or a friend of mine says, hey, the money I gave away, I don't worry about it anymore. I don't have it. And so I'm not like, I wonder if they're using that. No, I don't worry about it. The stuff I do have, I'm worried about. The stuff I gave away, I don't worry about it. And I got this fulfillment from it, which is super cool.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I love that. Well said.
Thanks for sharing those stories. Dan, let's close with one question. This is another thinker. What is one thing you're loving right now? It could be a person, an experience, a product, like literally, there is no rules for this, but what's one thing that you're loving right now?
Oh man, there's so much. Can I give 3?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get ready.
You're an idea guy. I should have known it was 3. So I love it.
So being in Mexico, one of the things that's great here is like just the cost of living is so much lower. And, I love fitness. I work out a lot, and at home, in the States, do most of that myself. But when we moved here, like the first thing I'm gonna do is join a CrossFit gym. I've always been interested in CrossFit. I did kettlebells and a lot of calisthenic stuff at home, but I'm going to this CrossFit gym and it's so fun. I'm loving CrossFit right now. It's, $50 a month as opposed to, 4 or 5 times that in the States.
Yeah, right. I just want to be clear for everybody. Dan loves CrossFit, and it took him 75 minutes to bring it up in the conversation. So all the stereotypes are out the window. Here's a CrossFitter who hasn't talked about it the whole time. That's old. That's an old stereotype.
Then the other thing that just came up that with the first thing that popped in my mind when you asked this question, which sounds ridiculous, is the butter here tastes different and it is so good.
Yeah.
So I'm loving butter. Can I do that?
100%. 100% you can say that.
Yeah, and then the third thing, and I'll stop at this one. Costco, there's a Costco here in Merida, and I know how much you love to Costco. It is
I sure do.
crazy. It always takes at least an hour just because it's always mobbed. But they have this very, I don't know, the brand is like GT Cretans or something like that, but it is tahine kettle corn. Tahine is like this chili spice, salt and lime and chili. And so it's like salt, lime, chili, and a little bit of sweetness on popcorn. And it is it's really addictive. I don't know if they have it in the States or not, but if you ever see it, grab it because it's good.
I just picked up some sweet and salty kettle corn or something. I didn't see any tahine corn, so it's probably not.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Come on down. Get you some.
No, we were on the Baja Peninsula last spring break helping out with our friends who run a ranch down there, and we had tahine fruit overlooking the water. And I was like, what are we eating right now? This is crazy.
Yes.
That's
a
awesome.
staple. It's so good.
So tahine popcorn, butter, and
CrossFit.
And CrossFit. Yes.
So
that's so good. Love it. Oh, that's awesome.
Yin and yang.
That's so good. Oh, I love it. One thing I'm loving right now, this is a new stage with kids. We've tried I don't know if you've tried chore charts, but we've tried all of the different possibilities, all of the iterations. We've done them all. We didn't ask AI. That was probably our mistake. We had kids before AI. But my wife came up with you got your basic stuff that you do every day. We're not putting that on the chart anymore. Sorry.
Yes. You got to put on deodorant.
Yes.
Brush your teeth.
She simplified it down to one. I say we. She totally did it. Simplified it down to one chore per week per kid. It's one kid's walking the dog, one kid's taking out the trash. And I feel like our completion rate just went through the roof. Yeah. We just did 2 weeks of everybody did all their chores. So we got to go to crumble cookie for dessert.
Yeah.
Talk about paying a lot for desserts.
So do the chores switch? Do the kids get a different chore each week?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they rotate. Okay. But it's been good. Great. And then there's only one now I feel like I've got the time and bandwidth to kind of coach you through it if this is a hard one for you, And anyways, it's just a brilliant move on her part to just simplify it and make it really nice. So I'm the one that would have, we got a big spreadsheet and stuff like that.
Yes.
I've been loving that lately. So
that's so great. I have a question for you. It's kind of the next lane over. Do you give your kids allowances?
Oh, great question. First of all, this gives you a picture into who we are. I think we spent a year and a half wrestling through that question.
Yeah, we're there right now, which is why I'm asking.
I was listening to a podcast one time, and there was just this phrase said. It was talking about helping your kids manage money and teach them how. Yeah. And they just said, if you want to teach your kids how to manage money, you got to give it to them. And so I don't think we really came down hard on you get an allowance versus you have to do chores to get the allowance.
Yeah.
We actually ended up separating chores from allowance. And hey, chores is a part of the family. And allowance you just get. And because first of all, number one, we're not going to go poor giving them whatever it is, $3 a week, $5 a week, something like that. But it gave them the opportunity to practice saving and sharing and spending. And
managing their desires, right?
Yeah, totally. So before we taught them how to earn it, I think we taught them how to spend it first, I guess. And then we can teach them later how to earn it when they have more ability to.
Yeah.
My teenagers are, they can do babysitting and pet sitting and stuff like that. Yeah. The boys are 11 and 9. They're, not quite there where they can earn money outside of shoveling snow and stuff like that. Yeah. So anyways, I guess I just kind of came up with that. We taught them how to spend it before we taught them how to earn it.
That's great.
Great question. So that's where we landed.
Yeah. That's where we have landed as well. Both allowance plus, chores are separate from allowance.
Yeah.
But I never had an allowance growing up. And I think that's where it's like, oh, this is interesting. This is uncharted territory,
Yeah.
for me. It feels a little bit, awkward, but also for all the reasons you just said, I think that this is what my kids need to be able to make these choices and learn what it's like.
Yeah. And be able to walk into the store with means and go, man, do I do something? Do I wait?
Yeah.
Or, hey, I forgot it at home. Dad, can you just spot me? And it's no, but we can come back next week when we stop by here and just remember to bring it,
It's great.
And then whenever a kid got a device, we switched from physical currency to digital currency.
Okay.
And got him like a kid's debit card with an app connected to it.
Nice.
And that was huge because after a while, you get enough cash and it's like, how much is in your safe bucket versus your share bucket? And it's like, well, I got to count it. Give me 20 minutes.
Yes.
I think that's when it got really fun, when we switched to digital and they can move it inside their app. We use the Greenlight app and they can use it inside different buckets and we can see all those movements happen, which is sweet. So
I love that. Very cool.
Hey there. If this episode impacted you, would you share it with a friend right now? That would mean a lot to me. And even better, if you could leave a review of the show. Maybe mention what part of this conversation stuck with you. On the first Tuesday of each month, we're going to bring you some more stories of great leaders who have learned what it means to be truly wealthy. If you're watching on YouTube, we're going to drop that on the first Thursday of each month. So keep an eye on that. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.